All right. Well, I noticed some pretty interesting things about this Missouri uh, racial thing. Missouri football team saying they're not going to play, and then this guy resigning. The first thing that stuck out to me is I don't know how many times we've referenced Lupercalia and how everything ties into Lupercalia, and go figure, this guy's name is Tim Wolf. It's all about the wolf and Lupercalia still. And look, he even became the president of the University of Missouri system on February 15th, 2012. February 15th is the third day of the 3-day festival of Lupercalia. And just an interesting date because I talked about how 213, 214, and 215 is Lupercalia, but I feel like a lot of these things started in 2013, 2014, and 2015. If you take out the zeros, it's 213, 214, 215. Just kind of interesting that he would be the president on the last day of Lupercalia, and this would be the last year. Also, he resigned on November 9th, which is there's 52 days remaining. It's also the 313th day of the year. I've talked about both of these numbers over and over this year. The 52nd prime is 239. It's the 239th year of the United States. Lots more to go with that, but the 313 is the day that Pope Francis became the Pope in the year 2013. And I mean, in other countries, they write it as 13-3. So it's either 313 or 133. And that's just interesting because look at the time that he announced his retirement. It was 4:33 on the East Coast, but they show it again later when they show Pacific. It was 1:33 Pacific time. Just wanted to point out here really quick, 306 score and 6. The 666 that's referenced in Revelation also adds up to 133 and 313. So interesting, Pope Francis would become Pope on that day. Also, in regards to the 52, he was the president of the University of Missouri system, and that system was made 52 years ago in 1963. It was created in 1963, which is 52 years ago. Also interesting to note the endowment, 1.441 billion. It's the 144 frontwards and the 144 backwards there. It's kind of interesting, considering we've seen this number over and over and over this year. Mark of the Beast adds up to 144. The last 144 digits after the decimal of pi add up to 666. So just show you that really quick. Mark of the Beast, 144. Also, not sure if it's connected, but 1839 is 176 years ago. That's when the University of Missouri was founded. And 176 just sticks out to me because Queen Elizabeth became the queen 176 years after 1776 in the year 1952. And I've made tons of videos on her as well, all tying into the number 26 and 62, lots of other things, but also it was founded on the 42nd day of the year. Even Missouri adds up to 42. The big N word that everybody hates with black people, whatever, adds up to 42. In regards to the wolf theme, Michael J. Fox in the movie Teen Wolf, which I've talked about, was connected to this year as well. He's number 42 in that movie. This number is surrounded by black people throughout history. Even Jackie Robinson, it's the reason why he wore number 42. Also, I forgot to mention, they don't show you that much information about what's really going on. They mention the use of the N-word at some place or whatever. They also tell you about a feces swastika, or a swastika that was made of feces. In Gematria, look at feces swastika. 133. I'm telling you, just like these other numbers down here. Feces swastika also adds up to 43. Another number I've seen a lot around the Civil War type theme that they've been running in the media. Also, the word 42 adds up to 43. So, who knows? Just find that kind of interesting. Also, the football team decided to not play or whatever because this guy Jonathan Butler, I believe his name is, he started a hunger strike, which to me just seems stupid anyway. Why would you starve yourself? What if nobody cares? You're just going to die. You're weakening yourself, whatever. It just seems stupid to me. I think there's a better way to do it than starve yourself. But whatever, he starts a hunger strike. Also, look at this picture in the background that CNN shows you. The bridge, and then they show the bridge. I don't know how many times we've mentioned bridge, the foreshadowing of bridge over and over this year. You know, I talked a lot about the Golden Gate Bridge. They were referencing that a lot early on in the year. Then I even mentioned the Benjamin Franklin Bridge in Pennsylvania, which they were kind of foreshadowing a little bit too, especially with like the Roanoke thing where they had the Franklin Bridge water when they showed it on the news or whatever. But anyway, when I think of hunger strike, I was like, the only thing I could think of is that song by the band called Temple of the Dog, and it's Hunger Strike. So I looked up Hunger Strike to see if there was anything significant to do with Hunger Strike, see like if there was a whole bunch of them or something. And literally, when you go to Wikipedia, a lot of times when you type in something as vague as hunger strike, it'll say disambiguation, and you can click on it, and then it'll show you all this other stuff that has to do with it or whatever. There's absolutely nothing on here other than for the Temple of the Dog song, see hunger strike. And I mean, you could scroll down here and read about some old hunger strikes and whatnot, but I mean, it's not even a very big page, so this literally tells you what a hunger strike is. And the only other one you can click on is this, the Temple of the Dog Hunger Strike. So who knows, just feel like they did the Hunger Strike only for that reason, to reference the Temple of the Dog. You know, even the guy's name that resigned, Tim M. Wolf, that's what they referred to him as in a lot of the articles, Tim M. Wolf, adds up to 44, just like Lupercalia adds up to 44. Lupercalia begins on the 44th day of the year. I mean, think about it. Martin Luther King Jr. even died on 4/4 in 1968. Obama is the 44th president. The Civil Rights Act was passed in 1964. Interesting that civil rights adds up to 64. Like I said, it was passed in the year 1964. Barack Hussein Obama adds up to 64. The Civil Rights Act was even passed on 7/2/1964. Obama became president on this day, which is 44 years later. The act was even signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson. Lyndon B. Johnson adds up to 64. I mean, oh, the coincidences, you know? But the reason that 64 stuck out to me even more was because Missouri played on the Thursday night game, and then before they announced that they weren't going to play the football team, they played on Thursday night, and they played Mississippi State. And that was on Thursday. On Friday, Mississippi State had a red-shirting player die in a car accident with his dad, who was also a former Mississippi State player. Also interesting, I guess Mississippi State are the Bulldogs, just another reference to the dog. I know it's a bulldog, but it is a reference to a dog. But the player that died was Keith Joseph Jr. So he died the next day after that game. And also his dad died, Keith Joseph Sr. And wouldn't you know, they both add up to 64. Also, so this kid, the only reason that he went to Mississippi State was because his dad also played there. And they tell you, so he was 18. His dad just so happened to be 44 years old. They tell you that he played linebacker even. And wouldn't you know, linebacker adds up to 44, so he was a 44-year-old former linebacker for Mississippi State who dies with his son in a one-car accident. And it says they were driving to attend a football game at Pascagoula High School where both of them played. So they were going to a high school football game. Think about all the recent news about the high schoolers dying in the football games. I still haven't figured it all out. I don't know what the whole purpose of it is, or like why they are reporting it, because it happens every year according to most of the articles. It's an average of like 12 people who die every year. I think 11 have died this year. But high school football game adds up to 213. Lupercalia is on 2/13. It begins on 2/13, February 13th. Also interesting, so where the high school game was played was in this town, and this town adds up to 91. And I've been making tons of videos lately about how I think number 91 is an elimination number and whatnot. So interesting, they would die on their way to a town that adds up to 91. Even Mississippi State Bulldogs adds up to 98, just like Lupercalia and Simple Gematria adds up to 98. In previous videos I mentioned Tom Brady. He played for Michigan. He became the starter in the year 98. His name even adds up to 98. Michigan is the Wolverines. Jim Harbaugh is the new coach. His name adds up to 98. Even Michigan Wolverines adds up to 98. It also mentioned that he was redshirting. Redshirting adds up to 131, which I find interesting considering the score of this game was 13 to 31 or 31 to 13. The mirrored numbers, which also, if you add them together, just so happens to add up to 44. Interesting too, they played on 11/5 of 2015. 11 plus 5 plus 15 even adds up to 31. Also, I wasn't sure how many Missouri players were involved in this, but as you scroll down in this article, you find out they had that one picture where they had the Butler guy locking arms or whatever with them, and it says that there was a picture of 32 black men. So if you take away Butler, it would actually be 31 of the football players. Interesting, like I said, they lost 31 to 13 in that picture, has 31 of them in it. And it has 31 of the football players, but 32 black men. In this game, number 32, he scored Missouri's first touchdown in 33 days. He's number 32. And it wouldn't even be that significant, but this article, if you read here, it says, the statement from these athletes of color was tweeted out Saturday by several members of the football team, including starting running back Russell Hansbrough. I mean, why would they even write that in there? Oh, I mean, it had to include this guy, so he's one of the 31. But then they had the picture with the 32. He's number 32 and scored their first touchdown in 33 days. The University of Missouri is also in Columbia, Missouri. Columbia adds up to 31. So also, I'm just going to finish it here. Jonathan Butler, the guy who did the hunger strike then, his name adds up to 161. Just like American Civil War, this number 61 is very special to the Civil War. The Civil War happened in 1861. Interesting, if you flip over 1861, it becomes 1981, which is 34 years ago. 34 even adds up to 61. Obama was born in the year 61. Also interesting, we've talked about September 23rd a whole bunch of times because Pope Francis was the 266th Pope, and he went to the White House on this day, the 266th day of the year. It's also 9:23. He went to the White House at 9:23 in the morning, and he arrived in the United States on his 923rd day as Pope. But it also adds up to 98, just like Lupercalia, all these wolf references. But Abraham Lincoln died 61 days after his birthday, and 161 days before September 23rd, 1865. The 161 days is also 5 months, 8 days. We've seen 58 over and over this year, coded into multiple stories, especially the theater shooting stories. Interesting, the theater shootings happened right around the same time that James Holmes, the original theater shooter from a few years ago, the Batman one, he got sentenced or whatever right around the same time in August. But the word 58 even adds up to 61. Also, we've talked about the number 106 and how it ties into 923 this year. 610, June 10th, or could also be 10/6, is literally the 161st day of the year. June 10th is also an interesting date. Queen Elizabeth II's husband was born on June 10th of 1921. He's exactly 1,776 days older than her. I mean, oh, the odds. Michael J. Fox was even born in the year 61. In a leap year, which will be next year, this will be the 161st day of the year. His real name is Michael Andrew Fox. Michael Andrew Fox adds up to 161. I've talked about why the Teen Wolf is significant. He even joins a school play that's about the Civil War. But who knows? I guess we'll see what's in store. I still think Obama is Dundee, but maybe it's coded for something entirely different. Anyway, have a